Alright, I'll try to blast through this real quick. You can see right now that I'm playing a Wii game on my MacBook Pro, and this is basically the entire Wii operating system, more or less, running on my Mac. So just keep that in mind. I mean, it plays really, really well. I'm playing with a Wiimote, by the way. Look at this. I'm not like playing with an emulated keyboard. I'm playing with I'm playing the full experience. You know, you can connect the sensor bar even. But anyway, I'm digressing. So the point of this thing is to say, what do I think that Nintendo should do? This is called Open Letter to Nintendo, or a parable for game makers everywhere. So what I just want to say is that Nintendo makes really, really cool games. Like the Zelda, the Mario games, they're really best in class. You know, I showed Zelda to my son this weekend, Connor, and he loved it. Like even Zelda 1 I was showing him on NES, like he's completely hooked. And you can imagine what he thinks about the newer Zelda games. And one of my points is that, you know, Mario is kind of to games like Robert Downey Jr. is to movies. Like it's the best in market for the mass consumer. Everybody, you know, when a new Mario game comes out, everybody rushes out to buy that thing, as long as they have a Wii to play it on. Just like a new Iron Man movie for Robert Downey Jr. Everybody goes out to go, you know, every 20-something, you know, goes out to go watch the Robert Downey Jr. movie. But the problem is that Nintendo's actually losing money right now on the Wii U. Every one it sells, it loses money, and they are not selling enough software to make up that loss. And that's not a guess, that is a fact, because you can look at their financial statements from last year, and Nintendo lost 36 billion yen last year. I don't know about you, but losing 36 billion of anything kind of sucks. And that's basically $370 million. So what I'm proposing is that Nintendo actually build all new touch-first Zelda and Mario titles for the iOS and Android phones and tablets. Because right now, people are just straight up ripping them off. You can see on the thing I'm posting up there. Shameless rip-offs of Nintendo games. You can see there's Donkey Kong rip-offs, there's Mario rip-offs. There's a Mario Kart rip-off called Mo Kart. You know, look at that. Like, these are horrific rip-offs of Nintendo products that they could easily sue and get out of the market. But the products are so bad that's really not a big deal. But the point is that don't let people rip you off. People obviously want these games on these other platforms, and Nintendo could build an awesome touch-first version of Zelda and Mario, and people would flock to it like they flocked to a Robert Downey Jr. movie. So, and also when I say touch-first, I mean literally redesign the whole game with the touch thing in mind. So, just like when Apple came out with the iPhone, they didn't just like give you their old OS X apps and then layer like a tiny touch thing on top. They built an all-new app that was designed with the assumption that touch was there. And I think Nintendo could easily rethink the Mario and Zelda games way better than any of us could and build an amazing touch-first Zelda or Mario game. And I think these are actually going to sell pretty well, and they're going to revive Nintendo. And then after they do that, so they won the Zelda and Mario sort of battles, the platform battles for iOS and Android, then they could even consider porting these games to, the Xbox and the PlayStation. Just like how we today at Microsoft sell Office for PCs and for Macs, and it works really well on both. And, you know, the Office on the Windows side, actually, it works better, so that's an okay thing. But it also works really well on the Mac side, and that's what I work on. I work on Office for Mac. And I think that Nintendo could do the same thing. Nintendo could certainly make really awesome games for their own hardware, but, you know, I think they could build the best games for other people's hardware too, and make money on both sides, and I think that would be a good thing. And I think all game console people, you know, should consider doing a thing like that, because it's not just about selling hardware; it's about selling, you know, the best software too. And then this is a bit of a stretch, but moving forward, if people start buying Apple TVs and Chromecasts or smart TVs, those will probably have app stores eventually. And as you can see, I'm running Mario on my MacBook just fine. Eventually, I'll be able to run Mario on my Apple TV. And then, you know, you're completely hosed because the Apple TV would be much cheaper than buying a Wii U or an Xbox 360 or something. And you can play the same kinds of games. And a Chromecast is $35 because Google is probably subsidizing that product. And so, you know, you're competing against a very, very, very low-end piece of hardware in the future. So I think it's important to get your awesome games onto other platforms like this. Let's see what else. So, one last thing. So for hardware, I think Nintendo has a choice. Let's say they've won the iOS and Android wars. Their choices are they can keep building hardware, which I don't discourage. Like if they can build the best hardware and the best software together, just like Apple does or Microsoft is trying to do with the Surface these days, then one should do that. But make sure it's the best and it actually has good value. So for the 3DS, you need to make that better than the iPhone and iPad at playing games, or cheaper. So a 3DS costs $199 today. You know what else costs $199? An iPhone. So which one would you rather have, an iPhone or a 3DS? And you know, if you think that there's some that the reasoning there isn't quite correct because you have to buy a contract, well then you can still buy an iPod Touch, which costs roughly the same amount of money, and you can give that cool thing to your kid, and your kid, you know, can now play games, really cool multiplayer games. You can check his email. He can browse. He can use other iOS apps. There's a million of them, obviously. You can do text messaging. You can do all the things that you cannot do on a 3DS. So Nintendo wants to win the hardware game. They better think about who they're competing with, which is really Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, like the big boys, and they need to come and bring, you know, a big boy experience. And the same with the Wii U. That needs to be better than the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Apple TV, Chromecast, smart TVs, or they need to be way cheaper, because a Wii U today costs $350, which is way too expensive. Because an Apple TV costs $100, it's probably going to become cheaper over time. A Chromecast costs $35. And in some ways it does a lot of the same things, or will be able to do a lot of the same things. So if they think they can't compete, and that's possible, because it's really hard to compete against Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. If they think they can't compete, then exit the hardware business and keep those amazing game designers that gave us the Mario and Zelda series, and keep building those games for the other platforms. Thanks.